Regular regular work session for the City of Sierra Vista City Council for 6 October 2020. Just for the record, we have two councilmen, actually, Ms. Gwen is here. We have one council person that's not here. I'm sure he's on his way. The first item of discussion is item 2A, which is the agenda meeting items for Thursday. Of course, we start with the call to order, our prayer and pledge, acceptance of the agenda, and then awards and presentations. And I believe we'll have I don't remember which group it is, a proclamation. Yeah, proclamation for Fire Prevention Month. And Commission on Disability is going to present an award to Sierra Toyota. City Manager's report. Chuck, is there anything that you want to share with us today?
Well, by the time we have the meeting, we all have attended the JPA board meeting, and there'll be a couple of procurement items, so not too much routine reporting.
Okay, for the public, JBA is?
Joint Powers Authority for CCOM.
CCOM. Okay, so the CCOM board meeting. Okay, item 2 is the consent agenda. We have meeting minutes for September 10th, 2020. Any additions, deletions, corrections for those minutes? Okay, item 2.2 is the City Council special meeting minutes for 22nd. Any additions, completions, corrections? Okay. We have 2 resolutions, one appointing Barbara Fleming, reappointing Barbara Fleming and Gary Smith to the Sierra Vista Police and Fire Pensions Board. Did you want to make a request that we get their applications?
Yeah, well, not Barbara's, but yeah, the citizen that,
Yeah.
only because I wasn't here when
Gary
he was
Gary,
first
Gary,
appointed,
yeah.
or last time he was
I have
appointed.
a question.
Gary Smith, yes ma'am.
I was just curious for how long they've served on that board,
4 years.
and
Well,
that's,
that application should give you an idea.
But
If not, you need to ask, Chuck, we need to have that information, how many terms they've served.
Jill is getting the information.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she'll pass that out to the council.
and how does the public know that that position is available, the civilian position? And is Barbara considered a civilian?
She's more administrative.
Yes. It said 2 civilian positions. Is she considered?
Because it deals with the retirement system, we have always had our HR manager as a member of the board to assist with.
And you need that technical
administrative.
expertise based on the questions.
I understand. I was kind of thinking, as I read that couldn't she serve as a consultant or advisor to that board? And civilians have an opportunity.
Well, that's not the way.
I say civilians, but I mean citizens.
That's not currently the way it's set up, but that could happen.
Okay. I know we've done this several times, and those 2 names are always there, and it just occurred to me with our new engagement kind of efforts that perhaps there's room for others.
And this deals specifically with police pensions and that kind of thing, which doesn't draw a lot of interest.
I understand. I just, you never know who's out there who has some expertise.
All
So
right.
how would do we need to do any more to that, for that?
Not before Thursday.
Right, maybe
We need to look for the next one. Jill,
Yeah,
do you have
we
a comment?
will make sure that the next time any terms expire, that they will be posted.
Advertised.
But it is just the 2 out of 4 or 5, because most of the spots are filled by law enforcement or fire, depending on which board it is.
And the mayor sits there as the chair, so that kind
Correct.
of there's not a whole lot of room.
And they only meet periodically when needed. There's no schedule, which is sometimes problematic for having a citizen to volunteer, because it's not a
Well,
They meet
busy.
as needed.
thing. Yes.
I'm looking at
Yeah.
post-retirement positions. I'm just kidding.
We'll get them posted next time.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
we can do that. Let's see. Any questions on item 2.5, which is the release of improvement security for the retreat phase 2? Okay.
Didn't you, let's see.
We now go on to new business. And who's going to talk to us about the non-discrimination plan for the Sierra Vista Transit?
That'd be me.
Okay.
Mayor and council, the item before you is it's a tri-annual renewal of the City of Sierra Vista and Vista Transit's non-discrimination plan. As a federal grant recipient, the Federal Transportation Administration and the Department of Transportation have a specific requirement that the city have in place this plan that is basically a statement of policy that the city will follow and abide by all of the Title VI non-discrimination laws, and then the rest of it is merely all of the backup as to how we will deal with it as far as public engagement, complaint processes, that type of thing. There are very few changes to the 2017 document. It's been streamlined a little bit, and we updated the route timing in the middle of the section to reflect what the current routes are, because 3 years ago the routes were different. But other than that, the intent of the document has not changed and will not change. It's federal law and we follow it. We have never, in my time doing this, which is about 4 years now, have not received a complaint, but we have this in place to hopefully ward off any. And if you have any questions, I am here, or Linda Jones, the transit administrator, is here if there's transit-specific questions.
I do have one question. Mayor, okay.
Go ahead, please.
And that's, is there a civilian hearing, or not a hearing, but a discussion about the plan? I say civilian, but I mean like a committee of some sort of citizens that meet to see the plan?
Generally, this plan is approved by the governing body, which is you all. In the past, it was run by the Transportation Advisory Committee, but with the COVID situation, that body kind of fell apart this year, and so there was not a review by them. To be honest, I felt that since it didn't change much and that we have a very comprehensive and
Thorough.
plan that the FTA had approved before, that there wouldn't really need to be. What really is important is that there is a whole component that's public participation for how the transit changes in the future. And that's where the public participation needs to come in, and we have absolutely allowed for notification and membership and comments and input from the public should that be necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll just note that the MPO also does a
Participation plan.
we participate in this Title VI plan as well, and theirs was approved in the last couple of months after being reviewed by ADOT for.
It's like this one.
It's basically the same thing.
Yes.
It's just required so that you can get your money from the feds.
And it's on their website. It's on the MPO website as well. And this will be uploaded to the city website under the transit page. The city generally follows Title VI because, again, it's federal law and we get a lot of federal grants for a lot of different things. But FTA and DOT are the only departments that currently require this plan in place. We may down the road have to do one for the airport and some of the other divisions that get grants, but right now there's no requirement for it, but transit is required to have this, mainly because of their customer base is often the ones that are discriminated against.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? All right, we'll move on to,
I have a question.
yes ma'am, sorry.
I don't know the history on it, but I guess I'm just wondering if it doesn't include like orientation,
Or you,
like sexual orientation.
that one, I believe it's all listed.
I think it's in, I think
It's not
there.
in there.
Oh, okay. I think the Title VI only covers race, color, and national origin. Sexual orientation comes in with different other laws.
Okay.
But I will double check on that and let you know.
Probably hasn't been updated from the feds yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's common if it's not.
But I
there
was just
already.
saying, I think that that's in a lot of other
Yeah, it is.
non-discrimination things, but it's not in ours, so.
I will double check. It's not too late to change it.
Okay, so any other questions? Thank you very much. We'll go on to item number 3, a grant for highway safety. Is this you, Chief?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, as you know, we're a member of the Southeastern Arizona DUI Task Force, and as such, we participate in many deployments as part of the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. In particular, we participate in the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, which puts details out there for aggressive driving, child safety restraint details. One of the big parts of aggressive driving under the Arizona statutes is speeding and identifying speeders. So as part of this grant, we have been awarded $5,220 to buy 2 LiDAR speed detection devices. Those are laser devices, different from radar, but they are designed to detect speed of specific vehicles, particularly on multi-lane highways. So we are granted the $5,220 to purchase 2 of those units. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the chief?
I do have one. Probably could ask it in your office, but you just mentioned like seat belts and child safety seats. And do you have many violations of those 2 in particular issues?
We do. I don't have the numbers in particular, but we do also do, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety has specific weekends where they emphasize that, do a statewide campaign, and then have all agencies in the state do selective enforcement for that particular thing. Obviously, child restraints is a primary offense that we can pull over for, but seatbelts is a secondary, so you have to pull them over for some other traffic violation before we cite those. But
I see. I was just curious then how that's working. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
On kind of along the same lines, can you remind, when did you start ticketing for cell phone use?
that will be starting in January of 2021.
Okay.
Is when that we can, right now, we can pull over and give the verbal warnings, but starting in January 2021, it becomes an offense that we can start citing for.
Okay. I was gonna say,
And
you
we will
can
be
pull
putting out, we'll be putting out, probably in December, start putting out a public campaign to make sure everybody's aware that ticketing can start at that point, so.
This on, I don't know if anyone else hears this more. I mean, I've heard more complaints about someone being on their phone and running through the light or running through the stop sign or whatever. It's
It's all over town.
I would say that's a
Well, I will tell you,
anecdotally.
yes,
of course.
and from my own personal experience, within a week, I pulled over the same person for the same offense, and them knowing I can't write the citation for it yet, didn't do much good. So it was basically within a 7-day period, I pulled over the same person for the same offense. So again, it's something that we're going to have to really enforce, but get a public campaign out there to make sure that,
There needs to be an education campaign and
Absolutely.
an information campaign.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you guys are gonna be pulling people over left and right. And
Probably can't even drive home without finding.
See it all the time.
Oh, just out of curiosity, the equipment, the LiDAR,
Yes.
okay, is that similar to what you already use? Is that
We
the
do. We
same?
do have radars and we do have lidars. So a radar is they're different types of speed detection devices. A lidar uses basically a laser. It's called a light detection and ranging device, and it's able to detect specific vehicles in a multi-lane road. Typically, with the radar, the range gets out pretty wide, so it's hard to tell at a distance which particular vehicle is speeding. Where the laser goes specific to a vehicle, it only gets to about 3 feet wide as it gets out there. So
Are these our first 2 LiDARs?
no, we have some already on hand.
Oh, so
as
we're,
well. This
The
is,
officers are already trained on them and.
yes, they all have to be certified to use both LiDAR and radar separately.
Okay, thank you.
Radar is an electronic emission that goes in a band out and covers an area, and the LiDAR is a point in return type thing,
That's cool.
okay?
Yeah,
So
thank you.
it's a different technology.
I have a question, sorry. Identifying aggressive drivers, it says, how is it different? It just speeding or?
So under Arizona statute, aggressive driving is very specific. The first thing you have to have is speeding, and then there's 2 other offenses that go along with it. Unsafe lane changes, following too close. But under the aggressive driving statute, it's speeding, and then I believe it's two additional of these violations out of a set of violations, and then you can charge specifically to aggressive driving. So speed is the primary identifier for that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. I think you got the next one too. There is the authorization for state safety highway funding.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is the yearly grant that we get as part of the DUI task force. This is the grant that pays for overtime and employee-related expenses at 40% for DUI deployments throughout the county, but most of them are in the Sierra Vista area. In addition, this grant also allows for the purchase of 4 portable breath testers, alcohol breath testers that are used out on scene during the field sobriety tests. The total amount of the award is $31,829. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? So not to get away from the cash drawer here, Chief, you got the next one too.
Yes, they all come and do at the same time.
Yeah. And this is assistance in training for and equipment for crimes against children.
That is correct. So this is a grant and also an IGA to become a part of the Arizona Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. This is administered by the Phoenix Police Department as the primary grantee. They do get their funds from the Department of Justice. So they focus the investigations obviously on child exploitation, child pornography, and in addition to basically luring a minor for sex crimes. So this grant will be used mainly for training those officers that are involved in those task force deployments and investigations, and possibly some software upgrades as part of that. With that, I'll be happy to answer any
And
questions.
we're doing some of this already.
We already do, yes, we do. These are joint investigations because of the wide-ranging nature of these things. Obviously, over the internet, these are joint investigations that are not only done with Phoenix Police Department, but Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and other agencies in the area, including Fort Huachuca's units.
Questions for the chief on this one?
Is this a new grant or renewal?
This is a new grant. We have been part of this task force, but this is a new particular grant that we haven't had in a couple of years, I believe.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So without these grants, would we still have the ability to participate in these 3 programs?
The last one we would, but it allows us to get more training, more officers trained in how to do these investigations because it is very specific. We probably would not be deploying the DUI task force because that's all overtime and that'd have to come out of the city's budget without those funds. We'd still focus on DUIs, but the actual additional deployments would be difficult to do without the grants.
Well, congratulations for applying and getting those grants.
Anything else? All right, then that basically concludes the agenda for Thursday. So we now go on to the strategic plan update. Mr. Patucci.
Actually, Ms. Yarborough.
Ms. Yarborough, I'm sorry.
Present this one.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So there's good news since the last report where many of the items were on hold due to the pandemic and the situation. And I'm pleased to say that most of those items that were on hold due to those reasons are moving forward now on schedule. There's a couple that are still on hold that I'll mention briefly in just a minute. But to visit a couple of the items since last time that are now complete, there's one on, the objective on the census is now complete. And the first of the two objectives on homelessness, mental health, and affordable housing, which concluded with the analysis that was presented to you back in July. The second item on those same issues is currently on hold, and it's likely to remain on hold since it relies on new staff at Good Neighbor Alliance. And that's a good segue into our other items that are currently on hold still. But as those have been whittled down to just the objectives on an events hashtag and event permitting, which I think is fairly clear why those items are still on hold. Although the process to redo the event permitting is underway once more. The only other item then that's still on hold is the objective on a small business incubator, since it's being addressed by other organizations in the community already. So then the highlights from the rest of the plan and on-schedule objectives that I wanted to point out briefly include our Bang the Table engagement platform is now operational, which was launched with the Spotlight video, and that's accessible at engage.sierravistaaz.gov. Please take a few minutes to check that out. There's some really great information in there, including a Council HQ landing page, which has a lot of information on council and your meeting videos, your council agendas, breakdowns on what you'll be discussing and what you voted on, and so on. Your podcasts are also there, and also a page to ask, is this fact or fake? And so we're looking forward to getting some questions in that. So please take a minute to check that out. Emergency medical dispatching implementation was scheduled for September 29th, so that is now complete with the timing of the report. We weren't quite able to mark it complete, but that is now, since it has been implemented at this time. You're all well aware of receiving the grant for the EMS substation. Planning is underway. We had a planning meeting today, and so we expect to be releasing the RFQ for a design build contract shortly. Phase 1 of the Fry North Gardens streetscape improvement project continues to.
Give me a second.
Yes,
We still had one federal clearance that we needed for the substation. Did that get taken care of? Thought we had to get an okay from.
So there's a few things underway, Mayor. We're waiting for BLM to release the change of use permit.
Change of use permit, that's what, okay.
So
That hasn't happened yet.
That hasn't happened yet, but I expect that to happen shortly. And they did indicate verbally that they didn't expect it to be a problem.
It shouldn't be an issue. Yeah.
They're figuring out how to do it because they don't have to do it very often.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for an answer on that shortly. So phase 1 of the Fry North Gardens streetscape improvement project is on track, and we're now in between the 35% and 75% design planning process, and that's on schedule to wrap up in early spring, the design process, before we then go out for construction. The West Sierra Vista Partnership Program continues to proceed very well, as shown by the list in your report. Our discussions to negotiate the tribute master plan are also going very well, and our plan is to have that topic for discussion at one of your work sessions, either the end of the month or beginning of November. So you'll hear more about that very shortly. And we closed on the purchase of the Rothery Center property just a couple weeks ago, and its future use is included in the overall Parks Master Plan process, which is also progressing well and expected to wrap up next spring. So that concludes the highlights I wanted to share. I've opened any questions, and we have all of our staff here to answer any questions on individual items as well. Thank you.
Questions on this issue for the Assistant City Manager? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On a couple on goal number 1.1A. I just wondered if that progress, it says it's on schedule, the ADA plugin for the website. Has that been demonstrated and communicated with the Commission for Disability Issues?
I think Jill can answer that one. I believe.
I know they have a meeting, so I don't know. I just would.
Sorry, I don't
want to make sure that they're the
That's
ones who
on-
brought that for us.
And Jeff goes to the code meetings. I don't go to all the Cody meetings.
Say again?
I don't attend all the Cody meetings, so.
Jill, she's asking if Accessibility was shown to Cody.
Yes, it was. Yes,
Oh, it was.
yes, and they were actually very impressed with it. We tried 2 different vendors, and the second one was a far more robust app. And we actually got people who wrote comments in that they were very pleased and didn't even know that there were accommodations available for the ADHD options and things like that. So they were very pleased.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was this one, and then, let me see. Another one, and I wrote it down, and now I don't know what I was gonna ask. Remember. Popped in my mind and popped right out.
Well, it'll pop back in here in a minute.
I know.
Christie, did you have anything? Gwen?
I just, out of curiosity again, on item 7.2, is there actually a way that IGA creates revenue with Fort Huachuca? That's I believe the fire department.
Fire department training and animal control. On the fire department training, I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
Adam, do we receive any funding for the animal control?
The animal control is
portion?
actually now a contract. We have a contract with Fort Huachuca, and they pay for the service that we provide to them, meaning the storage of the animal and that kind of stuff, but only on a per animal basis.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. Kind of remembered that, but
Anything else, Gwen?
I think that's it. I'm gonna take a quick look. I'll check that.
I don't have questions, just kudos or how pleased I was really with the engagement site. I'm looking at Adam, but I don't know, and maybe it was Brian but you guys did such a great job. Everything's in one place and it's easy to find, and I don't know, do you plan, okay, I do have a question. Do you plan, I didn't at first, on promoting it more? Because I know it was mentioned in the video, but I don't know if it's anywhere else for people to find.
Yeah, Councilmember Humphrey, I would call our current stage a soft launch, and we intend to use it a lot more in the next several weeks and then start aggressively promoting it.
That's awesome. Okay.
Is it okay that we've sent it out to friends and stuff to try it
that's
out?
the idea, is we want people to start poking around, see what they think about it before we push it out a little more broadly.
Okay, great. It's wonderful, I agree. It looks really nice, and you know what I really like too is being able to read Vista, the Vista, what's that, Vista 411?
Vistas.
To bring it up to the whole page size. I don't recall being able to do that when it was out there before.
So one of the advantages of this site is you'll find stuff you didn't know how to find before, in all likelihood. It kind of centralizes a lot of stuff that's hard to find on the website sometimes.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Did you remember?
I remember.
All right.
Thank you. My brain is scattered these days. On the Mercado concept is on hold, and you're not looking at it being in the West End anymore. The Mercado, like the idea for the Mercado wanting to do that, and where. I guess it was
Yeah.
as a
I could
space
give the short
for
answer,
small
but-
business incubation. I know that was just one strategy of many, but
Right. So the Mercado concept is facing a couple different issues. One, it was based on the partnership with Sonoran businesses, and of course, COVID has closed the border and increased some challenges there. The second one is to really try to find a partner to go in on the Mercado concept. There was another effort, a private effort, I would say before COVID, to do roughly the same thing. I sat in a meeting with the AREDF Small Business Development Center, and they had pulled in Sonoran businesses, and they were actually going to look to set it up in the mall. But it would be a private concept. We did discuss it, at least internally in the staff, whether we could combine it or use it with the Fab and Fry property that's been recently purchased, which would be on the west end. But again, trying to find an ideal location at a low cost, it really, quite frankly, the last year has kind of discombobulated the initial effort on the Mercado. Not going to say it's a bridge too far, but I would say right now it's probably a bridge too far.
It's too bad. It was a nice idea. I liked it.
Well, and again, the businesses, if we say we go back to December, January of this year, you know, we were still trying to police up the businesses, and we were working at import-export to try to overcome those issues. And then we were looking at how you would build a lease and put an intermediate in, whether it would be the Hispanic Chamber or someone else. But of course, with, you know, again, with COVID, it's been a challenge. So.
Okay,
Back burner.
thanks, Tony. Did you want to make a comment, Chuck? Yes.
I have one other.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On the plan 7.4, the plan for the use of effluent, I know that that you have a few models for possible alternatives for that, for the plan for the use of effluent, but they are based on the adjudication, or they have to be based on the adjudication. Can you help explain that?
Well, Councilmember Pacheco, right now, of course, we're recharging all our effluent at the EOP. So there has been discussion through the Cochise Conservation and Recharge Network to move a portion of that effluent to a project called the Riverstone Project, which was a piece of land next to the Sprinka to the south of the EOP. So there's been some preliminary work done on that, but basically that would help that reach of the river from Riverstone site to the EOP. The issues there are taking it down Mosen Road, which is an uphill, so that would require some engineering, a lift station, and there's a lot of right-of-way issues that the county would need to resolve on Mosen Road. So that would be the first step. Our effluent is going to be a very important component of any future talks we may have with regards to water and working with the county and the federal government. So we're anxious to see if we can get that project off the ground. There'll be some challenges working with the county on that, but I think that would probably end up being our best use of our effluent in the future.
Great. Well, thank you. Be interesting to see how that develops.
Is that similar to what Nogales does with Santa Cruz River, where they put, I don't know where their water comes from, but they've got water in the Santa Cruz River. Is that a similar project?
Well, our project, obviously, we're already recharging effluent, so we're actually leaders in the state in terms of doing that. So now we're talking about more benefit to the river in more places. So for us to do that, we need to take the effluent to the south, and so it's a little different than what Nogales is doing. But again, the adjudication is a big part of all this, and we still have no word from the judge, either on the fort's adjudication numbers or Bureau of Land Management's.
And I'm going to say the Nogales project is a lot different than ours, because most of their water comes from Mexico. It's untreated. It's treated in an international, based on an international agreement with Mexico on the U.S. side. And it's recently been made available to be released because it now meets the standards, and it is starting to increase the quality of the aquatic life on the Santa Cruz north of Nogales, Nogales, in a couple of stretches. So it's kind of a little different than what we're doing. We don't have the pollution issue. We don't have for a certain stretch of the river, we don't have areas that have gone dry.
Like the
and
Santa Cruz.
Like the Santa Cruz has. So they've done some improvement, and it's a similar project, but it's not really the same. What we're trying to do is, we got a stretch of river that's relatively wet most year round. We're trying to stretch it to the south and stretch it to the north by doing the other recharge projects. So it's a little different.
Essentially bringing water to the river.
To the surface, yeah.
Uh-huh, to the surface. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we can dam it up and have a lake.
Well,
Just kidding, just kidding.
I think they talked about that a couple of years ago.
And a
Okay.
swimming pool.
Anything else on the strategic plan update? Okay. And I guess we're up next with Matt with the community development block grant and the additional CARES Act funding that we got recently.
We're back. I'm gonna bring up the slide presentation for the public that's included in the agenda.
Sarah. So, the sexual orientation's actually in Title VII. But what I can do, I can include it under additional protections. And that'll also be
Anthony, thanks for being here today. Appreciate that.
included, even though it's there with
United Way here in force. That's great.
under that section.
Sorry, that's what I was reading. I was gonna look on the screen rather.
Gotta know the secret code.
Coming up.
You just need to switch it back to the lectern, from the, he doesn't need the projector, he's using the speaker.
Can you see the slides on your screen from the agenda?
Not
packet?
yet.
We see,
Hang on,
yeah, we
we've
see the
gotta
session
switch it back to
information,
the
serious to
computer.
city council session information.
But we do all have a copy of it.
Yeah, we do have copies of it.
Yeah, but they won't be able to see it on
What
broadcast.
link comes it up? Oh, yeah, on the podcast. Just kidding.
Marie is talking, so yeah, you're good. He's always
Can, but, he's gonna do the COVID
There you
studies.
go.
If he doesn't cover it, then I can mention it.
And that we're still on. I guess most people know that, but some think we're out of the woods COVID and stuff.
All right. Ain't technology wonderful?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We're looking for your input and guidance on the second round of CARES Act funding via the city's community block grant program. The approval and programming process will be the same as the first round. The grant dollars must be used to respond to coronavirus and provide a benefit to low to moderate income persons. The normal 15% cap on public services is suspended for this category of funding. Okay, so you've been a part of each step in the process, which dates back to March, when the CARES Act was first signed into law by the president. In April, we met to discuss the funding parameters and priorities for the $159,897. The following month, we processed the necessary amendments to our consolidated plan and annual action plan to program the funds. Economic development staff managed the application process for the small business assistance grant, which ended in June. In total, the city awarded $86,050 in CARES Act funding to help 11 businesses. In May, the city signed a subrecipient agreement with United Way of Sierra Vista to administer the Emergency Crisis Fund, which was modeled after the Grombacher Assistance Program. This fund provides needed rental and utility payment assistance and a variety of public services to community members impacted by COVID. From our perspective, this agreement has worked very well. We are getting monthly reports. with the necessary backup information to track every dollar that is spent through this program. We now need to determine what our priorities would be for the second round and likely final allocation of CARES Act funding. This amount is 50% higher than the first round at $239,351. If we can arrive at a consensus today, we will schedule the amendments to the Consolidated Plan, the Annual Action Plan for your first meeting in November. I've asked Anthony Reed, the Executive Director from United Way, to walk you through his proposal so you can get a firsthand perspective on the critical needs that our community is facing and how they're being met. But first, I'd like to walk you through the expenditures to date. About 72% of the $73,847 that was in agreement has been applied to rent and utility assistance payments that is being administered by St. Vincent de Paul Society. We did have to move up the October payment to meet a surge in demand in September. $7,000 was provided to the Sierra Vista Dream Center to provide low-income residents with meals. A series of resume writing workshops have been held to help people secure employment. Seminars have also been held for people grappling with anxiety and depression. According to a recent study published by the American Medical Association, the number of adults experiencing depression has tripled in the United States since the coronavirus outbreak, with more than 1 in 4 adults reporting symptoms of depression. The study found a correlation between socioeconomic status and depression. Individuals with lower social resources, lower economic resources, and greater exposure to stressors reported a greater burden of depression symptoms, and Sierra Vista is not immune from those trends. The fund has also covered the cost of hotel rooms when Samaritan Station has reached maximum capacity. This slide shows the beneficiaries of the services that are being provided. To date, the Emergency Crisis Fund has assisted 329 families and 938 people in our community. You can see the breakdown here. The needs are still ongoing, and I'd like Anthony Reed to speak a little bit about his perspective on how the program's working and walk you through his proposal and how he's getting the word out so people can benefit from the services that are being offered. One thing I do want to point out is with the proposed budget, those figures can be adjusted as the needs fluctuate throughout the program year by up to 50%. If the type of service exceeds the 50%, that requires prior approval from the city, and that's done administratively. So,
Matt, could I real quick?
Sure.
You said Samaritan Station. Is that Good Neighbor Alliance? Is that what that
it's
is?
an emergency
Okay.
shelter operated by Good Neighbor.
It's just a different name. Okay.
Good.
I think we're ready for Mr. Reed.
Maybe I'll just go straight to this. So, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Thank you again for having me. I think just starting off with that slide, walking through. Okay, so. Oops, it disappeared.
It's spacebar.
Whoops.
Mayor, I forgot to ask Matt yesterday while they're doing that.
It's coming. Yeah, broke it.
I did what they told me.
These are unique persons. They should have
I don't know.
Anthony, I could ask you a question while they do that. In the first slide, oh, maybe this isn't a good time to ask you.
So, with the, we're going to the proposal now, right? Unless there's
go ahead and ask that one. On the first slide, it shows rent, utilities, food, employment. And then the second slide shows the different agencies. Do those correlate so that the rental money that was used by St. Vincent de Paul, the utilities money that was handed out by St. Vincent de Paul, the utilities dollars that were used were also handed out by St. Vincent de Paul? Is that how that works?
When you say handed out, no money goes directly to any one individual.
Right, okay.
The rent goes directly to the landlords. And we have documentation that we provide, like it shows, if I can go back for a minute, if you remember, the moratorium on eviction was supposed to expire in July. A lot of the landlords, we went and talked to all of the landlords around here, especially some of the main people. They already had eviction notices ready, just waiting for the deadline. And, you know, for them, they're like, okay, well, we understand and we're trying to be sympathetic, but some people hadn't paid rent since March. And they have to be able to maintain it. It's like, if the building gets foreclosed on, they won't have anywhere to live at all. So, as Matt mentioned earlier, we didn't have a lot, when the unemployment, I think they paid an additional $600 a week for unemployment. So when that was going on and there was the rent eviction thing, no one was really asking for anything. And a lot of the employers, as they opened back up, it was very difficult for them to get people to come back to work. But then as it got closer to time for that moratorium and no one knew what the governor was gonna do, then everybody started coming in. I mean, I think it was, we had like, I wanna say like $17,000 worth of requests in like 3 days. And how it goes, just to go back a little bit, St. Vincent de Paul has a quorum of people, and when they go and see people, they have an intake. And when they come in and they see the intake, they go and see if they can make a negotiation with the landlords. With the utility companies, they already have a semi-agreement with the utility people. Like when the temperatures reach a certain degree, they're not gonna turn any of the power off or anything like that. Well, all of those things are coming to an end now. And we anticipate, if the moratorium, if it's not lifted in October, we anticipate there's gonna be another big flood. Plus you have to factor in holidays and all those other things that go on with that. I think that for me, when Matt called me with this and we started thinking about different things, I mean, I've lived in this area off and on more than 20 years between military time and civilian time. And there's been more people that I see around here that's homeless than any other time. So I can only imagine what it's gonna be like if they don't extend that moratorium for the rent. Utilities are gonna come due. We've already had discussions with some of the utility companies. They're like, hey, it's wintertime now. And all of these people, everything is accruing. You know, so we have to try to do something.
I think I understand
Yes,
better
ma'am.
now. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions?
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just wondering, on the number, the 938 persons assisted, are those all unique individuals, or are there some repeats in that, or?
The way that it's set up with the way the HUD intake form is, if your family comes in and asks for utilities help, then we'll count that toward utilities. But then if your family turns around and asks for rent help, then you're gonna be counted toward that as well.
Okay.
So we don't really get, people when they come in so far, the majority of them, they either need help for one or the other. Or they might need rent and help with food or something like that.
Okay.
So we don't get we get some repeat offenders and some people come in, I need help with rent and utilities. There are some, but not a lot.
So those are mostly individuals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So when Matt called me with these new numbers, then I started thinking about how we could assist, because we ended up having to adjust a little bit, and per the agreement, if it's more than, I think it was 25%, well, it was what? 50%. If it was more than what we agreed to, I had to get permission to move money around. So the average rent cost in Sierra Vista is about $750. And in utilities, somebody might be behind utilities, they might only be behind maybe $100 or $200, but then with rent, they might be 2 or 3 months behind. So we have more people asking for rent. So I had to ask permission to move some of the utility money to the rental money. And then like with the food in the first round, we did a big batch and bought a bunch of food, and we were able to help not only individuals, but a lot of the smaller nonprofits. And we were having people come every Sunday because churches weren't open. So everybody came every Sunday and got food. So what we did when we got that, we didn't know that this new money was coming. So what they decided that they wanted to do, because people are going to need money for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So they said, we'll spend this amount now, and we'll spend a smaller amount at Thanksgiving and Christmas time. And that's how that came about. And what happened with a lot of things, we're trying to get in touch and still trying to get CCAP and some of these other organizations to pitch in. Legacy Foundation has pitched in a little bit, and what some of the organizations are doing, they're saying, well, if Legacy is going to give me this money, let's spend this money first. And then when that money ran out, then they're like, okay, we'll start spending this other money. And that's what's pretty much going on now. But there was not much of a need when we first started out, but then all of a sudden there was a need, especially when that unemployment ran out. And I don't anticipate anything stopping anytime soon. So if we get back to the proposed extension, again, we put the bulk of the money with the rental assistance. And a lot, because you have to think about it like this. The way the Grunbach Assistance Program works, Councilmember Calhoun can come to ask for help one time per year. We'll help you one time. And we explain to you, if you come and you ask me to help you with a $60 water bill or an $800 rent, well, usually we wouldn't do rent. We only do rent with this special case now. But I would ask you to put some skin in the game and at least try to help a little bit. And maybe you take care of the smaller thing and we'll help with the larger thing. So if you can only come once a year, a lot of these people who we've already helped, before you blink your eye, it's going to be time where they're going to be eligible to come back for help again. And that debt that they have is still accumulating. And if I can, the landlords don't really want to evict anyone. Because if they evict people, they don't really have a long line of people waiting to come in because everybody's trying to stay put right now. So we try our best to try to help make an agreement and bring both folks together and say, okay, well, we'll help with this part, and the landlord's gonna maybe put some stuff to the back, and whatever they work out. But we try to make an agreement with them. We make sure that we contact all of them before St. Vincent de Paul even approves any monies, and before they let me know what they've approved, they've already had 2 or 3 conversations with each landlord. And for the utilities, a lot of that is going to come due as well with that money that the utilities just let slide, and we'll leave the power on, but it's going to come due now. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to help keep that power on through the wintertime. The food assistance, there's a lot of people here, and what we found out with a lot of the smaller organizations as well, schools. A lot of people are still remote learning. And a lot of some parents have to stay home with the remote learners. And some parents, they kind of mix it up that way. And even with the remote learning, a lot of the schools, you go to school Monday and Wednesday, but you're still home Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, or something like that. So there's going to be, what we're talking about doing or trying to develop is maybe a study hall program and things like that that's going to provide, kind of like they did in the summertime when they'd have lunch, free lunch and things like that for the people that are still going to be out with remote learning and things like that, just to make sure that they're going to be taken care of.
So Anthony, are you saying the schools are feeding families even though they're remote?
Schools, at the school, I think that they're providing lunches, but for the kids that's not going to school,
and the
Yep.
kids that are like in the neighborhoods, particularly, and we're talking about a lot, most of the people with that 928 people that was in there that Rachel Gray mentioned, most of those people are on the West End.
Tony,
Yes, ma'am.
the schools, to my knowledge, do have a pickup they pack lunches and they do a pickup, and that's at every school in Sierra Vista. I don't know if it applies to charter schools or Huachuca City School, but I know that in Sierra Vista they're doing a pickup, and they even put a pickup spot at Rothery Center.
Okay.
And then but remote learners can go through and pick up breakfast and lunch in a sack lunch at all the schools.
There was,
And anyone can go, because
right,
you don't have to,
Showing
any
up.
child
to
who
the
shows
school.
up at the school, they will give them breakfast and lunch, and that anyone can go.
there was an article about Sierra Vista, though. I think I saw it in the Sierra Vista paper, though, that said a lot of people don't even have transportation to get to the food supply, the foods that are being offered. So I was curious, as you go through this discussion
Yes, ma'am.
about transportation, if there's anything that I don't recall us putting
One
any
of the
money.
things that we did for this round, that we included, but it's only for Good Neighbor Alliance, but if people have transportation issues and things like that, then I would send them to St. Vincent de Paul, and St. Vincent de Paul would help purchase bus passes.
Okay.
There is a budget line item that's going to be for this new round for the Good Neighbor Alliance. For the residents there when they have to go to job interviews, medical, and things like that. That we're just gonna buy a bunch of bus passes that's gonna be for that.
And you and I need to talk offline, but that's another regarding transportation issues, and this applies mostly to families whose kids go to public school, because that's where, like, public school administrators are aware of the problem, but they have delivered food via school buses. So if a family can get to a school bus stop in their neighborhood, then they'll bring food bags to their school bus stop, or they'll bring breakfast and lunch to
That's
their
cool.
school bus stop.
That's great.
And so that's been addressed in some areas, as far as where there's like the parent has a disability, or if they have a lot of small children. It's really hard to ride a public transportation when you have lots of small kids, and you have homeschooling kids or whatever. So and you don't have a car anyway, so riding the bus is really hard. So,
Okay,
but anyways, that's
Okay.
Okay.
And for the K-12 COVID-19 education assistance, then we're getting a lot of requests from, I used to be an educator, I'm putting my educator hat back on now. The teachers are being asked to teach the kids that are in school, and also teaching the
Yeah.
remote learners as well.
Yeah.
So they have
crazy.
technical issues that they have supply issues that they have, and things like that. I mean, I've come out of my pocket, and then we've done other things for supplies and things like that. So what we want to do is build up a fund and have a bunch of supplies and have a bunch of. I'm working with Staples to see if we can just have a through fair where the teachers can come in and grab the supplies that they need. Also for the tutoring and things like that. This remote learning is a totally different animal for everybody. And all of my kids are grown, but I couldn't imagine my kid coming to me, Dad, I need help with geometry.
Right.
And that's just not my thing. So a lot of the after-school programs are still open as far as tutoring services and things like that. And a lot of the different entities are gathering tutors to have the kids come in, and maybe have the parents come in for a lesson to help the parents as they try to navigate through this. So that's the main thing what the education assistance is going to take care of. Assistance that way. A lot of people, I know that the schools are providing Chromebooks and all those other things like that, but sometimes there's not enough to go around. We had an organization contact us the other day saying that 3 of their kids, because of mental things and behavioral issues, those kids can't go to school. So they have to stay at the centers where they are. So when they stay at their centers, they didn't have any, they asked us if we could get a couple of cheap laptops or something like that. And then another organization needed us to help them, they were asking if there was assistance available to help them with the internet, because they can't do their remote learning unless you got internet. And I've talked to Cox. I'm having a meeting with Cox next week and a couple of other entities around here to see what else we can do to help curb some of the costs for that as well. Yes, ma'am.
On that discussion, I think the Arizona Department of Education, it's probably the wrong name, but they had a grant program out to distribute hotspots to students who needed help with internet. And then for a while, when all the district was on distance learning, they were sending hotspots out into neighborhoods on school buses. And so they would park the school bus and they would have a hotspot on board in areas where there were a lot of families without internet so that they could connect and do their schooling, but they're not doing it anymore because the schools are open, to my knowledge. And so I think that, like, hotspots, but there are programs out there for hotspots as far as that goes, like getting hotspots into the hands of kids.
And we can look into that, but like just like there's programs out there for rental assistance, there's program out there for everything else.
You just gotta track it
CCAP has
down
been
and
like
then.
invisible for like, I hope I'm not busting anybody out around here,
Yeah,
but
you are.
they've been invisible for about 4 or 5 months. So, I mean, we'll do the research to go find the stuff, but in the meantime, these people are needing help right now.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like trying to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
One of the other things, because when we thought about it before, and the city expressed maybe we could do something for Good Neighbor Alliance. So I spoke with Mignon Hollis, and Mignon Hollis came up with a couple of things that we could do to help Good Neighbor Alliance as well, because they're the only co-ed homeless shelter that we have in the city. And some of the things that we talked about with through there, she expressed a need for extra funding for it. They want to, one of the biggest line items they want to do is buy a heavy-duty washing machine. Because with all the cleaning requirements, especially with COVID-19, and the uptick of clients that they have taken in, they need, instead of like something small, they need a heavy-duty washing machine. So that would be one of the line items. Another thing would be to help. They have to hire more help with all the intake that they have in. And if you look at the bullet item where it talks about the Good Neighbor Alliance, a commercial grade washing machine, to help with sanitary requirements, bus passes for clients to get to medical appointments and employment opportunities, and also to offset expanded outreach hours. So that's what that money would go toward. But that would be a separate line item from the homeless assistance.
Tony, I'm going to stop you for just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of us were lost on where you were
I see.
at. It's on the proposed extension, that very first page. We had to catch up with you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
So for the homeless assistance, what happens is Good Neighbor Alliance won't contact me unless they're full. And they have to, unless we get like an emergency, like I think there was a fire and a family had to be placed right away. But what they'll do, they'll contact me. Well, they'll pay the bill and then they'll call me and let me fix it so they don't have to wait right away. But it's mainly for when they don't have any space at the center. And we get more and more requests. If you look before in the first couple of months, it was very small requests that we were getting, and the numbers are going up as far as the requests for the homeless. And as I say, like when I drive through here all the time, I'm seeing more and more homeless around the city than I've seen ever. So I kind of look at it as a positive. One of the things that we've done, we had a couple of sessions for mental health and anxiety. And of course, in COVID and everybody's on lockdown with masks and everything else. So what we did was we provided a login for people to do it at home, and then we provided safe with social distancing and people to come in at one of the centers. And we were able to provide help and provide assistance for anxiety, mental health, and depression. I mean, I just had a physical the other day, and the first thing the doctor said, he says, you're either suffering from mental health or you're overweight.
So what exactly are you doing for that overweight part? Just kidding.
The gyms are back. Some of the gyms where I go play basketball are open. They take our temperature and they do all of that stuff, so I'm able to go play basketball.
Okay, basketball.
After I got permission from my wife. So But the mental health part and what we want to do, and then we also anticipate, because even before COVID, mental health and things like that, and suicide prevention and things like that, especially during the holidays. So we plan on going full board, like in the month of November, maybe doing it instead of monthly, maybe doing it weekly. From the time Christmas or Thanksgiving starts through Christmas and after Christmas break. And that's what we anticipate doing. And spreading
That's
the
good.
word. And then for employment, then what we did, we had a bunch of seminars helping people with resume writing. We even had interviews, and we worked with mock interviews, and we worked with the Salvation Army about helping people, showing them how to dress when they show up, telling them, hey, because and we're talking about adults, a lot of people, hey, don't take your best friend with you to the interview. You know, no, you can't, so we do all of that. So with the employment and working with the people on post, because there's a lot of times that we get a bunch of job opportunities. So it's kind of like a mini job fair along with the resume writing, and because we help with the civilian resumes and federal resumes. And as we get little things, like there was a project on post, and they were looking for, I think they were looking for about 60 people. And with that job, it paid, I think it paid like $18 an hour. So we helped everybody get their resumes together to do that. The problem at first, a lot of people they weren't really in a hurry to do all of that when the unemployment, when that extra money was in there. But then after that ran out, then people quickly were looking for opportunities. And a lot of people are looking to be upwardly mobile. We actually planned a smaller amount for a smaller amount of people showing up for the employment, but there's more people out there. A lot of people just don't want all of that. They'd rather go to work. So, yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry.
I thought you had a question. And then the last thing on there is the administrative costs, and that's 5%. And when I look at other places, everybody's looking at me like, that's all you charged was 5%? And I'm like, well, it's the city, and this is what we do, because the going rate, I guess, is a lot higher. But that's just what we agreed to from the beginning, and that's what we're going to stick to. I mean, because the United Ways principles are, whatever money we bring in, we're trying to get the money right back out, and we wanted to stay right here in the community that we're in. Yes, ma'am.
Anthony, for mental health and employment, the trainings or services that are provided, do you have to RFP those, or how do you decide who to go to help with those?
We like people to RSVP.
No, I mean to
Request for proposal. So-
do you have to ask them to request for proposals for agencies to provide the mental health and the employment training, or do you go to places you just kind of know?
We go to the places that we use, but if other people want to come in and present what they have, then we'll listen. We're not tied to one entity or another entity. We'll put the word out. I mean, like with the mental health, a lot of we couldn't find a lot of people because a lot of people in the area were telling us no, because they were like, they were worried about HIPAA and they were worried about other things, so they couldn't, I guess, think outside the box to try to help everybody. We're not asking you to delve in everybody's medical records or things like that. We're just asking you to help people start a conversation. I mean, that one mental health thing that we had, it was scheduled for 90 minutes, and it ended up lasting 4 hours.
I believe it. Because people needed that information.
And people were needing that information, and there was aftercare and things like that was going on as well.
When one of the things that I think was to our advantage by working with United Way is they've already got established relationships with a number of agencies in the community on almost all these issues. And by doing that, if we'd had to do that ourselves, it would have taken more time, number one, and then we would have had to follow all those government rules, whereas a private agency can expedite, and all that would do is delay getting the help to the people, getting the help in a timely manner to the folks. So we appreciate, you certainly appreciate your efforts in that and helping us out.
Thank you. And also, I just want to point out, again, going back to what you asked before, we're not tied to one entity or one organization. It just so happens St. Vincent de Paul is already there, but if there's a church or there's somebody else and they've got people there that need assistance for rent or need assistance for whatever, then we just funnel them to that one place. It's easier for me for the paperwork and the administrative side of things to only have to deal with one entity than to have to deal with a lot of entities.
Sure.
I'm in
They have
army of one.
established processes there. It's easier. Yeah.
So,
I think it's important to, that you're able to say that to us, so that we get a better understanding of those relationships. And that was that question about the funding. Did it go to St. Vincent de Paul, or was there a lot of other folks in there involved who were also assisting landlords or whoever? But you've answered, you've answered that.
It's to our advantage, really, to have it set up so that if somebody needs help, they go to the existing agency. The existing agency then spends the proper amount of funds or other efforts, and then comes back to Anthony. It says, here was our bill, here's what we did, and that way it helps us, because we got to answer and account for all the cash back to
Sure,
HUD.
sure,
Or,
got it.
is it HUD? Yeah.
Get it, I just,
So,
get out there.
Just to button this up, the detail you're seeing on this slide would be part of a subrecipient agreement. The amendments that would come before you in November would be the allocation of the money towards the emergency crisis fund. So if the council, if there's a consensus on council to budget the $239,351 towards the emergency crisis fund, we will advertise and prepare those amendments for your consideration at your meeting in November.
Just to reiterate, this is your best guess with Anthony's proposal on where these dollars need to go. That's your best assessment. And I did have one other question about the 100 and the 329 families assisted. Anthony, does that look like to you the major number of folks in our community that are hurting? Or do you
Absolutely
think
not.
there's tons more?
I think that there's tons more. I think that with a lot of people, pride,
Yeah,
with a lot of people, they were comfortable for a while and now they're just trying to figure things out. Because we're still giving out, St. Vincent de Paul still gives out food baskets. And as they give out the food baskets, then they ask, how are you doing? As far as rental and things like that. And like I said, with a lot of people, it's pride. It's kind of like when somebody's transitioning, how you feel, oh, I'm good, but they're really on the inside, they're super scared about things. I think that it's a small thing, but I also think that we're doing a good thing and doing a great thing by helping people. Because a lot of these people, they have nowhere to go. And I was heartbroken when I went to go talk to some of the big landlords and they already had the eviction notices ready. But then I'm also heartbroken when I sit in on some of those intakes and they're like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And now as we get ready to go back to school and the kids are going back to school, the parents are ready for them to go back to school, but mom can't work anymore or she lost her job already. I just think that, this right here and this new grant is going to be able to help so many more people.
thank you so much.
thank you, sir, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna get back to the consent question, which is what Matt wants to hear. Understanding that there can be adjustments in some of the way this is distributed in the future based on need, and we have that flexibility. Is there anybody that objects or would not agree with this methodology?
No.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, Matt, is you have your consensus. We do have a 5-day period. We're required by the feds to have public input. What I would tell the public, they can, anytime between now and, this is gonna come before us, the first meeting in November 12th. Please give us the input, because you got more than 5 days to give us public input on this item, and we'll consider it. So we'll meet that federal requirement by more than 5 days. Okay? So thanks, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Reed. We appreciate United Way, and I'll just give a plug here. United Way has done a great job in our community for a number of years. If there are folks out there that have a little extra money that they're looking to give to a charity to help out, I'm sure Mr. Reed would be happy to cash your check for you and put it to good use in our community. Okay? So, thank you, sir. Next up, we have executive report. Mr. Patuchik.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. The executive report, of course, is a little dated. We meant to have it at the last iteration of council meetings, and of course, those were postponed. So what I'm going to cover may not necessarily exactly be in here, but would be in the next executive report. So first, I have had the opportunity to meet and speak with the new county administrator that was recently appointed by the supervisors. His name is Rich Karwachka. And first item that we're going over is the court agreement. The revised court agreement that the council had approved has been approved by the supervisors, but does require the signature of the JP, which in this case is Mr. Call. So we're still working on that. I don't think the agreement has made it over to him, but Mr. Karwachka asked if I would attend a meeting with him to visit with Mr. Call on Thursday after the JPA CCOM board meeting. So I will plan to do that, and hopefully there won't be any issues with that. There's been a couple issues with regards to the other JPs in the county. Hopefully our agreement is not structured the same way as theirs, but there's still some legal issues that the county is working through there. And of course, I've been talking to him about some of the environmental discussions that we've had, mostly surrounding the CCRN projects and the effluent that Sarah asked about earlier. We will be having our next discussion with Castle and Cook on the tribute changes to their plan. That will be tomorrow. So we are discussing the value of their effluent and where that will go. So that also centers around the use of effluent as well. We're pretty close, I think, to having an agreement. So we're hoping to have at your November work session the agreed to plans and drawings, and we will go over the changes with you at that time. And the hope is that we can have the council vote on those changes at your December meeting. So that is what we're aiming for. As was discussed earlier, we closed on the Rothery land with the school district. So that will now be part of Veterans Park. So we'll be calling it Veterans Park Sports Complex, or some name appropriate for now, unless the council determines to choose a different name in the future. Ms. Wilson and her staff are working on a planning process for the revised master plan of both the existing Veterans Park to work in conjunction with this property. So they're working on some drawings. I asked them to work on a few options, and of course then work with the Parks and Rec Commission then for their input and a public input process on that. So you'll be seeing more on that. It might be an excellent project for our Bang the Table application as well. So we're looking forward to that, and of course once we get a master plan, then we got to figure out how to pay for that, but let's see what the folks want first. So that's the idea there. As you read in the paper, I was interviewed by a Herald reporter that they contract with out of Phoenix, and we had just got our new revenue numbers, which continue to look strong for our sales tax. Of course, restaurant and bar and hotel motel are still hurting somewhat, but overall revenues are up much higher than we had originally anticipated. So our budget outlook continues to look strong going forward into the holiday season. We'll be working with Tri-Advocates to set up a meeting with them, probably post-election, to go over that and go over the legislative outlook for the coming year, and work with them to perhaps meet with our legislators once the election is over to discuss that and bring them to a work session with the council. And of course, as the year wanes here and the election looms, of course, we'll have a new council and we'll be starting to work on the strategic planning process for early in 2021. And we have started working with the mayor on that. And I imagine he'll be calling for agenda items and those kind of things here fairly soon. So that's all I have right now. Of course, staff is here to answer other questions with regards to the report.
Questions for Mr. Matuchik or staff on the report? Yes, sir.
Okay, on page 17, there's a recommendation to remove traffic signals on Fry Boulevard. Is that not until like as part of the Fry North Garden project, or is that, I mean,
well, Victoria's working with the consultant on the Fry North Garden project. And as she mentioned, we're at the 35% plan level. So one of the things we were looking at with regards to the numbers was, how many traffic lights do we need in that stretch of that particular project? Right now, actually, based on traffic warrants engineering studies, none of the lights would actually be needed in that area given the amount of traffic there. I still need to review the appropriateness of that and determine, what signals may or may not be needed or other traffic calming techniques that we can use in that area. So we're meeting with staff again to go over that, and of course we'll bring that to the council before any final plans approved.
And Sarah, I want to share with you, I did have a rather more in-depth conversation with the city manager at my meeting with him yesterday on this specific item.
okay.
And I have some significant issues other than just traffic warrants with removing lights. So it's still part of a discussion. It's not set in stone yet. So obviously we need to control traffic. We need to make sure that should the current main gate be shut down for a while, we have to meter people in from Fry. We know that the other lights that are on there are primarily on Carmichael and North, and there's a little jog there. And there are certain times of the day where you need traffic control. Now, what's that gonna be? Is it gonna be one light? Is it gonna be a flasher? So all that needs to be discussed. So again, nothing is set in stone. And Chuck is gonna go back and look at that specific comment from the consultant. So
Okay.
more to come.
Yeah,
More
there's a
discussion
lot
to
of
come.
different ways to tackle this issue, so I want to take a
just
look at
hadn't-
all the options.
I hadn't seen that before I read that, and I was like, really?
Yeah.
Take it out. I'm like,
Yeah, I
Kinda
think
woke
part
me
of
up,
the
too.
yeah, what? What's going on?
part of the problem I have when I try to envision, what the corridor is going to look like, and this is just me personally, but, the road is gonna narrow to 3 lanes. Traffic is meant to go much slower through that area because we want to encourage people to stop and take advantage of the businesses and hopefully new businesses that will, come as a result of that. So do we want a thoroughfare or do we want something that promotes walking and stopping and that kind of thing? So I'm wrestling with that myself.
Yeah, we gotta reach a happy medium there, and that's where.
Because it's gonna be a different
I'm wrestling with
character.
it too, yeah.
It's certainly gonna be different than what's there now.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is a just education question. We had, what is it? A bunch of out-of-town business license requests. Is that normal? Like, is that normal for us to receive? Why do you need a business license out of town?
Well, if the business is located out of town and
This
they're doing
contract.
business in town, they need a license. So we have other people that are looking at prospecting in Sierra Vista to try to drum up business, and I guess that's good.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. That's all I had.
Yes, ma'am.
Betty?
Yes, ma'am. It's up to you.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Did Sierra Vista Fire Department go to any of the California fires? I thought
No, I'm not aware of our department
we
going to
didn't.
California.
Okay, I thought I saw something that we did and Fry Fire did.
Fry did.
Oh, okay. I had a cute note here that in the airport discussion, there was a comment about the arrival of monsoons. And I thought, not really.
We missed that
Yeah,
arrival.
that must have been one day I was out of town.
Maybe next summer.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask about a web-based hydrologic information portal, which sounds really great. That's something that's in the works.
That was,
The grant that
go ahead.
This 2-year project will produce.
we approved.
I didn't know you were back there.
This is blocking
Uh-huh.
our direct view of each other. But yeah, the acronym they've come up with for it is the WHIP, web-based hydrologic. I don't know how they came up with that.
WHIP.
Yeah,
There it
I wasn't
is.
involved in that effort. But basically, it's designed to make a lot of the data that's been collected by groups like the Upper San Pedro Partnership and, to a lesser extent, the Cochise Conservation and Recharge Network over the years, make that more readily accessible and also bring it all together in a manner that people can look at it and see all of that data together. So that's the vision for what the WHIP would be.
That sounds really, the first thing I thought about was tourism and people coming into our community who want to build things or do things, and they hear rumors about water and all that, and this will make it easier, at least, especially for just civilians, citizen-type people, to understand what the real water picture is. Am I interpreting that correctly?
It will definitely make the data more accessible. Right now, that data is out there, but it's in a lot of different documents. So looking at the whole picture together can be challenging. The data is still going to be fairly complex in nature. I think there will probably be an effort to look at, is there a way to present that in a more readily digestible manner? But the primary focus of the WHIP is actually pulling all that data together.
I see. Okay. Thank you. That was it. And I had a question for PD, because it said the department could potentially lose 7 to 10 officers in '21. And I wondered, is that a result of the national scene around PD, or is that a normal kind of retirement
John.
thing?
You need to get up to the mic, John.
Retirement, yeah. But is that pretty?
Part of that is intended retirements in 2021, up to 7. I think we have 4 that have committed in writing that that's their intention. And we usually experience 1 to 3 officer attrition through other sources to go to other agencies or onto a different career. So that's a fairly normal thing. But we are entering a period of an excessive number of our officers are going to be eligible for retirement within the
Higher
next.
than normal?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
That was kind of it. Thank you.
And that's really put there for a future budget discussion, because we've talked about having essentially overhires in the police department to try to overcome this. And as I spoke with the city manager about this, he needs to have a recommendation for us for next year's budget. I think we're 2 over already this year, overhires.
Yeah, we got the 2 over, and now, of course, we're experiencing this, so we're scrambling
We
to
look to the
keep up
future,
here.
future retirements, we need to project additional money to do the recruitment to get people on board, so.
And it takes at least 8 months for them to go from
Well, they got-
hire to.
And they gotta go to school, and there's all kinds of fitness standards and that kind of stuff, so.
But the overfill budget strategy appears to be working, and I would certainly recommend we continue to do that. to cover these retirements.
So I think really the discussion point is really how many can we afford to overhire? Really, because there's a definite need for it, but that's just me talking.
And just another comment, I noticed we had this pickleball tournament that's scheduled and looks like it will be held.
What's up?
And I'm also, since you're coming up for one, I'm gonna ask another one. I saw that we're having a disc golf tournament this weekend. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilmember Calhoun. We just held the pickleball tournament 2 weeks ago, and everybody
Yeah,
had, yes.
Where'd September go?
I know. It was a great success. Everybody had a good time. A lot of people came in from out of town. They loved our community, stayed in our hotels, ate in our restaurants, so we appreciate that. And I just heard about the the disc golf tournament this afternoon, so I'm excited to hear about that as well.
So I didn't even know we had a disc golf club, like group of people, but
We do, and
have
they're
they
active.
talked with you about what they further beyond this
I'm looking at
tournament?
Adam like,
Adam's
Yes,
like,
yes. Isn't it Adam?
Oh, it's, you know, I forgot. Somebody kept referring to Adam, and I kept saying, "Who is Adam that works for the city?" Oh, Adam Curtis, who's hiding behind the monitor. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's his
Spoke
passion.
this afternoon about how to actually rent that so that their club could actually charge a fee and make money, and so we're excited to work with them on that. So
Fantastic.
I think it's great.
Okay, super. I love those other kinds of things like pickleball, disc golf. Those are weird things, but at least it's not NFL and NBA. Hope I'm not offending anybody.
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, at a higher level, Laura's been doing a good job. We've been a little more open in terms of the use of our outdoor facilities and playing fields, since Phoenix and Tucson have essentially been shut down. So the word has gotten out statewide that we're open for tournaments and that kind of thing. And Laura's done a great job with her staff of bringing them to here, and knock on wood, we haven't had any health issues associated with that either. So
We're
it has
taking
worked out.
steps to do the social distancing and
Yes,
and the mask.
they all have to submit plans to her for approval first, and so far that has all worked out pretty well.
Anything else, Gwen?
No, I
see
think
another-
that better be all.
Another hand on this side.
Sorry. So this, on the airport project with the moving of the dirt, it said that the final construction documents would be completed in September, or the contract awarded in September. But I guess I'm trying to understand, on the fundings, we submitted a draft application for funding for CARES Act, but it's not the same funding that we were talking about with Matt earlier.
Right. So-
Different.
Correct.
Different.
So Councilmember Pacheco, two questions, or two answers to the questions. One, we received the final review of the plans. We sat down with the staff and actually made adjustments. So we have not received the final construction documents. We should see those in about 2 weeks. We have been pursuing the EDA grant, which is CARES funding, to the tune of about $1.5 billion. Long story short, we ended up with a phone conversation, and quite frankly, to work this project into the standards of the EDA does not fit. However, if we do I had a discussion with Chuck about it, if we move the dirt and prepare the land and find the right, shall we call it, business, we're in a good position to go for future grant funding for a hangar down the road. So it just doesn't fit right now. We're trying to fit the round peg into the square hole.
Moving the dirt doesn't qualify as job creation, so that's what we need, that's the component we need to have to access those funds.
So that information came in after we submitted the executive report.
Okay. All right. That's all I was wondering. Thanks.
Anybody on this side? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chuck. I don't see any, we're getting close on time. I don't see any, I don't know of any report on recent trips, future meetings and meetings. Anybody want to share? I'll just tell you that I had a brief meeting with the mayor-elect of Bisbee. We talked about a number of local issues, and I think he's going to be a good guy to work with on regional issues. Future discussion items and requests to council.
An event coming up, Good Morning Sierra Vista.
Good morning, Sierra Vista. You gonna share that with us? Because I don't have it written down. I know you're,
Oh.
you're gonna do the talking for us.
So that's why I remember it.
Yeah, it's coming up and it'll be virtual.
13th,
Yeah.
virtual, 7:45.
And Gwen will give you all the information if you want to attend, so.
Thank you.
Or you can just go to the chamber's
Or you just go to the
website.
chamber, they'll tell you. You get signed up for it. Okay.
Oh, you have to sign up.
The city COVID status, Chuck, if you want to go through where we are, I know we're still encouraging people to wear masks and social distance and wash their hands and do all those things.
You know, just anecdotally, I see most people continue to do that despite you know, the mayor relaxing the mask mandates. So I appreciate everybody doing that. As of yesterday, we had countywide 50 cases and 15 in this 2 zip codes, Sierra Vista. So we'd actually been lower than that a couple of weeks before, but bumped up a little bit. So I don't know if that's complacency or just random cases, but still pretty low in terms of caseload.
And when I daily go back and look at the numbers on the state site, and we're about the same spot we were at the end of May.
Yeah.
So before it blew up, and the thing is, we have to accept some type of risk. We still have to be careful, but it's going to be around for a while. And I think the latest thing I heard was end of November they may be done with the trials. So that would mean December, January, vaccines and treatments may be available. So again, get the shots when you have the opportunity, and by all means get your flu shot too, especially if you're an old geezer like me.
Yeah, and of course the city is going through flu shots for the employees. That starts tomorrow, and trying to encourage everybody to do that, because with flu season coming up with COVID, and trying to differentiate between the two is a challenge as well medically. So we don't want to contribute to that either. Of course, what this means for our facilities, if we remain this way, we'll start slowly looking at reopening some of our facilities to more public participation, to include maybe more meetings at our buildings and opening up the library a little bit more. So we're working on those, and we'll let you know the status of that. So, but the soft openings that we've been doing appear to have been working pretty well. Of course, we have events that were still pretty much on hold, the large events, because we're not at that point yet statewide for the governor to relax those. So I know the mayor's working on a modified ceremony for Veterans Day, and then Laura's working with the chamber on a modified parade for Christmas and that kind of thing. So we're not really looking at opening up the outdoor events probably until sometime early next year or spring of next year, the way things stand right now.
And I'll just mention from speaking with the director at the chamber, they're still going to do the tree auction. They're going to do it differently, so please get a hold of the chamber if you're interested in that. They're also not going to do a parade, but they're going to do a Christmas lighting contest for folks around town, and they're going to publish where they are, etc., so people can drive around in the car and view those kind of things rather than a Christmas parade. But again, we're also planning in the city something in the park with the Christmas tree lighting, yet to be. See Laura back there, yet to be announced.
And actually, I ought to know the answer to this question because I'm starting to get asked it, and I don't have the answer. And Halloween, and what we're going to do with kids going out and trick or treating, and I really need to talk to the police department. And some
Well,
others.
it's.
I don't think many parents will
Many
do
parents,
it. But
many parents won't allow it. I'm sure there are going to be churches that'll have trunk and treat and that kind of thing.
But we won't be having it in the park, correct?
No, we won't be doing
We won't
ours.
be doing it on city property. That's kind of the answer.
So it's really the door-to-door thing that we need to discuss.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think many parents will allow their kids to do that, but you never know. There might be some.
They're going out.
You think
And
they're going out?
they're
Okay.
I don't think
All right.
looking stuff.
I hate to be a spoil sport for Halloween, so
I know.
I'm gonna try
I'm just
not to
saying,
be.
what are you gonna do?
And they all have masks now, so.
Yeah, they're all wearing masks.
Wear your mask.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds like
your
council wants it to proceed, so
Anything-
we'll figure
anything-
that
What
out.
can you do? Like, how can you stop it?
Anything else for this evening's meeting? Okay, we'll see everybody Thursday. Thank you very much for your participation and the good questions. Meeting's adjourned.
Yeah, if you don't want him to come by, turn off your light. Right, like, how are you gonna stop the whole
Priorities.
city to trick or treating?
Is everything okay? You said it